Hey, my friends, I want you to join me. Become intrigued as I case read the 411 baffling unsolved cases of hundreds of random people from clusters all over the globe who mysteriously vanish without a trace and are either never seen again or found hundreds of miles away from their last known location, deceased under weird circumstances. Today, my friends, today's story, as long as I don't get interrupted again by my family over the phone, is going to be about Todd Geib. And if you've heard that name before from David Paulides, he has talked about him numerous times on his interviews with Coast to Coast AM, Where Did the Road Go with Soraya, and Whitley Strieber's radio show that normally appears on YouTube most of the time. I'm pretty sure he got his own radio show on the radio, but I normally hear his radio show on YouTube. And if you don't know who Whitley Strieber is the author of Communion, which is a true story about his life and being abducted or visited by aliens in his New York. I think it was a vacation home, New York vacation home, upstate New York, I believe. If I'm correct, I'm not sure, but it's a very good book. It's a pretty thick book called Communion. It's got a big old alien head on the front cover. Very good book. I read it back when I was like 15. That was when I really started getting into the whole alien thing. So anyway, without further ado, and like I said, as long as I don't get no interruption from my family while I'm in the middle of a broadcast, because I only got so much time left. I'm trying to warm my oven up so I can get my food cooked and trying to do this at the same time. So I'm trying to multitask here. So I'm gonna try and get through this because I got a lot to read on here, and I want to get to another case that was right after my last broadcast. I can't remember the name of the person right now, but it was the broadcast that I did prior to this one. But anyway, let me stop rambling here and get on with the story. Okay, Todd Geib went missing on 6/11/2005 at 1 a.m. in Casnovia, Michigan. He was 22 years old when he vanished. I still like to say vanished because it sounds a little bit more better when it comes to these kind of cases, because that's how it reads in the book and that's how it's written in the book. So, disappeared. Anyway, okay. One of the primary reasons I wrote this book was to explain the association between the disappearance of college-age men who had been drinking and the cases I described in my 4 previous books. This case centers on the small town of Casnovia, Michigan, located approximately 25 miles north of Grand Rapids. In my previous books, I established 52 clusters of missing people in North America that fit the profile we established. One of the clusters is exactly 50 miles north of Casnovia. It starts in Weber and extends to Ludington. The entire region around Weber and Ludington has had many strange vanishings, which are explained in detail in the books. And see, that's what I like to try and do, because he said when you are reading the books, he wants you to be able to read all the details, because if you listen to his interviews, you're only going to get a percentage of what he can explain about these cases in the books, because he talks about topography, all the details in the cases as far as the toxicology reports and miles between point A and point B, where the person lived, how far his destination was from his home or wherever else he was coming from, like a party or something like that. It lists a lot of details, and he also lists the distance between point A and point B and the bodies of water they end up in or around. So anyway, that's the thing about what you got to deal with when you're reading these books here. Okay, let's see, make sure. Okay. Todd Geib was first an outdoorsman who loved all aspects of being outside. He caught trophy fish and enjoyed deer hunting with his dad. The place where he lived had that outdoor feel to it. When he was younger, he played basketball and baseball and was more involved in competitive sports. His sports didn't interfere with his dry sense of humor and his religious beliefs. He was raised in a household that at various times centered their religion on Protestant and Catholic beliefs. Todd's one vice is that he enjoyed smoking cigarettes. While researching this story, I found one unique statement. He was from a German and Polish background. What's interesting about his heritage is that in my past books, I have commented that a victim's background is rarely discussed, but when it is, German seems to be more common than any others. Todd loved his family and often made the 5-mile drive to visit his folks in Ravenna. On June 11, 2005, Todd was at his parents' home visiting and eating an early dinner. Sometime between 6 and 6:30 p.m., he drove back to his home in Casnovia and spoke briefly to his roommate, who was also his cousin. At 7:30 p.m., he drove to a local bar where he met with friends for a few drinks. At 9:30 p.m., Todd left the bar and walked to a party that was annually held in a nearby orchard. It included a keg bonfire and about 50 people enjoying the good weather and the privacy the location offered. At 12 a.m., Todd told his friends that he was tired and was going to walk the 1 mile back to his home. He left alone. Now, if you noticed or if you have read any of his books or listened to him on Coast to Coast AM or any other interview that he's ever given, he talks a lot about how a lot of the college age men who be at these parties somehow end up getting tired all of a sudden, and then they leave the premises and walks back to where they came from by themselves instead of them getting a ride from someone who they came to the party with. Now, the other crazy thing about this, he drove to this party, but yet he walked home. So either he said, okay, well, my friends will drive my car home, so I'll walk home because it's not that far. Still, though, why would you drive home? Drive to the party and then walk home? I would think that he would have, or one of his friends would have drove him home. That way he wouldn't have to walk so far, even if he did know where he was going. But still, that's what he did. So, what can I say? Okay, let me make sure I'm in the right place here. 3 p.m. Todd left the bar. Oh, okay, here we go. Let me see. At 7:30 p.m., he drove to a local bar. Okay, let's see. Okay, now sometime between 6 and 6:30 p.m., he drove back to his home in Casnovia, and spoke briefly to his roommate, orchard. Okay, and included kegs, privacy. Todd told his friends. Okay, here we go. Now, Todd told his friends that he was tired and was going to walk the 1 mile back to his home. He left alone. Okay, Todd knew that area of the party and the route back to his home, like we know our backyard. His home was in this area, and he'd lived in the region for a long time. There are several stories about what happened to Todd, and some differ slightly from one another. The basics about what happened are very similar. Todd made 4 phone calls from 12:45 a.m. to just before 1 a.m. Kathy Geib is Todd's mother. At 12:47 a.m., Todd called his friend and stated, "I'm in the field," and the call dropped. The friend called back and thought they heard. The friend called back and thought they heard heavy breathing or wind. He couldn't, distinguish the two to figure out which one sounded like the other. Okay, now in WZZM on June 15th WZZM on June 15th ran the following article on his website. Still Todd's last cell phone call came from here, an area just east of the bonfire he attended Saturday night, Kathy said. The message was that he was having trouble breathing and he was in a field. This is remarkable. Excuse me. I once wrote about the disappearance of a man in the cluster north of this location. He made a cell phone call and his wife stated he was breathing heavily and seemed to be out of breath. So at that point, I would imagine he was either running or he was running and he stopped so he can talk to her over the phone, or running from something. What? I don't know. And apparently they didn't know either, because every time stuff like that happens, the phone call would drop every single time. Okay. Okay, here we go. Friends tried to call back and did not get an answer. Todd was supposed to be at a family gathering on June 11, 2005, when he never arrived. When he never arrived, he was reported as a missing person. Searches started for Todd on June 12th. There were some rumors of an altercation of some type involving Todd that was never verified. 4 different groups searched the area he was last seen without finding anything. He was last seen without finding anything. On June 13, 100 searchers combed the area on ground. A helicopter was in the sky and canines were on the ground trying to find a scent. It was reported that one canine found Todd's scent on the dirt road he was walking and then lost it. And see, that's weird. So at that point, he was probably on a dirt road and he either walked right through a dimensional portal that was invisible to the naked eye, or he got swooped up into the air by something. It could have been some invisible force that was able to use some type of mental telekinesis, or like I said, he was probably abducted by aliens at that point. What could have actually happened, I don't know, but that's what I'm gearing towards. So you never can tell, or you never know. Let's see. Okay, it was reported the K9. Let me see. Okay. The swamp in this area, the swamps in this area were searched thoroughly. Todd's residence was on the outskirts of Casnovia, on the west side of Half Moon Lake. This was on the eastern side of Highway 37. The party he was attending was on the western side of the highway, close to his residence. There was one small body of water on the western side, Ovid Hall Lake. Weird name, but that's the name of it. The lake is approximately 1,000 feet long and narrow. Some locals fish the lake, but it is not easily accessible by car. During the time that Todd was missing, people went fishing at the lake on May 7th through the 8th, and they scanned it with a radar and had clear images of the lake bottom. They reported they did not see anything unusual. They had also stated that they had traveled the perimeter of the lake by boat and hadn't seen anything odd. On July 2nd, 2005, at 5 p.m., a husband and wife were walking down the lake when the wife saw something unusual protruding from the water. The husband got into the boat and discovered Todd's body. The witness reported that the body looked like it was floating like a bobber. Let's see. Okay, as it stuck out of the water. Todd's baseball hat, cell phone, and one shoe were missing. He had been missing for over 20 days. The location of the body shocked many involved in the search. He was walking towards his house when last seen, southeast from the party. His body was found north of the party. There have been many instances where the victim was walking one direction and was finally located in the opposite direction, which is kind of weird because you walk in here, but somehow something makes you turn around and walk in the opposite direction where you end up in the water. So I'm thinking whatever this thing is able to subdue you in a type of mental type of way, using some type of mental power, and it's able to redirect you in the area where they know nobody's going to ever look for you until they're ready for them to look for you. I mean, that's, like I said, that's just an educated guess. Okay, let's see. Many of the forensic details on the case come from the book Case Studies in Drowning Forensics by Kevin Gannon and D. Lee Gilbertson. The work they did on the case was stellar. The facts they unveiled prove that something highly unusual happened to Todd. The first indicator that something was unusual about his incident is when the on-scene coroner's investigator stated that the incident was suspicious. This would not normally be a classification on a drowning case. There were conflicting reports on how the body was positioned when found. One report indicated the body was face down. Another stated prone. When Gilbertson and Gannon conducted follow-up, they confirmed that his head and shoulders were protruding from the water. So it's almost like he had lead feet, like someone tied a cement block to his leg. They tied a rope to his leg that was attached to a center block, and he got thrown into the water. So his body could probably be bobbing up like that. And you saw a lot of situations like that with gangster movies where they always say you're going to be sleeping with the fishes. So they would tie them to a rope which is attached to a center block. They throw it over a bridge and you fall directly into the water. And when you're found, you're probably just bobbing up and down like that because you're still attached to that rope. That's another educated guess, but from what it said, that wasn't the case. He was just bobbing in the water like that. How? I don't know. But let me see. Okay, when Gilbertson and Gannon conducted the follow-up, they confirmed that his head and shoulders were protruding from the water. This is a highly unusual position for bodies to be in when there is no ice on the surface. No rigor was found in the body, and the autopsy stated that they could not determine lividity, which is settling of the blood at in certain parts of the body. Like say if you laying flat on your back and you're dead, the blood somehow settles to the bottom of the body. It's almost like when you pour something heavy in water and it just sinks straight to the bottom. So that's kind of like what it is. I guess the blood doesn't become as buoyant as it normally would be in the human body, so it just settles to the body. It settles to the bottom half of the body when you face down or on your back. Okay, let me see. Okay, it was noted in the report that decomposition was intermediate to moderate, with no marbling noted. He had hair on his head and eyebrows without no degloving. The medical examiner noted that there was swelling around the eyelids, and he couldn't determine the color of the iris in either eye. The body was described in pristine condition, in pristine condition for supposedly being in the water for 20 plus days. There was a specific mention of no peel fragments found in the stomach. His blood alcohol level was 0.12%, which is 0.12%. The toxicology screening had some very unusual findings. One item that was found, which was not unusual, was a byproduct of smoking Con, let me see, containing a byproduct of nicotine. What is highly unusual was the presence of disappearamine. Yeah, disappearamine. This is prescribed to a treatment. This is prescribed as a treatment for depression. Some of the effects of high dosage levels are drowsiness, muscle rigidity, and stupor. It was oh, for crying out loud. It was. Let me see. Oh yeah, it was reported by Gannon and Geib that Todd had extremely high levels in his system, 495 ng and ml. I don't know what that means. You see, he was also found to have amitriptyline, okay, in his system, whatever that is. The fascinating part of this story was that Todd was never depressed and had no history of taking these medications. The results of the first autopsy was that Todd drowned with the manner of death as undetermined. There was no water found in his lungs. Dr. Cyril Wecht, a noted pathologist, reviewed the results of the toxicology and reports and determined that Todd was dead or unconscious when he entered the water. Two people took the photos of the body and the autopsy reports to a conference for pathologists and medical examiners. It was the unanimous opinion from the physicians that Todd was not in the water for 20 days. He was only in the water for 2 to 5 days. This is based on the condition of the body, reports, and toxicology. This means that Todd was held somewhere for 15 to 18 days before being placed in the water. Everyone stop your thought process on this incident. In my prior books, there are dozens and dozens of cases where victims disappeared in the mountain, in a mountain or rural setting. There were massive searches, and the victim was later found directly in the midst of where the searchers were looking. The victims weren't in water; they were on land. Many of the searchers in these cases were completely dumbfounded that the victim was found in the area because the location was extensively searched, probably like 50 times or more, and on the 51st time, there they are, right there. So it's like someone was watching them as they were looking, and they tried to fuck with their head and put the body there after they searched for like 50 or more times, which seems to work every single time, but they can't seem to figure out how is it they always end up in the same spot that they looked over 50 times or more on a daily basis, or at least in that one day. But it is what happens. Okay. In many of the cases, it appeared the victim had been placed there. In the cases where the victim is on land, the body doesn't react in the same manner as in water. The implications of the drowning cases and the other missing cases I've written about cannot be ignored. Gannon and Geib convinced many of the victims' families to undergo a second autopsy, a secondary autopsy. It was during those autopsies that inconsistencies were found that made it clear that the body wasn't in the location it was found for the entire time the person was missing. I know that the natural reaction of readers is to imagine where the victim had been. It would be safe to say, based on scientific forensics, the people were not in the location the bodies were found. If they weren't there, how did they get there? In Todd's case, there were no roads into the lake. You had to walk. The idea that anyone carried his body to the lake and placed it in the water seemed extreme. Todd was a big man, and it's very hard to carry a dead body. Let's see. There were no ligature. There were no ligature or other marks on the body indicating that they were held against their will or tortured. None of the bodies recovered showed any of this evidence. His body was found in a location that did not make any sense. He was last seen walking in the correct direction to his residence. He makes several cell phone calls indicating he's in a field. Another friend heard heavy breathing. 20 days later, Todd is in a lake bobbing like a bobber. Gannon, Gilbertson, and the Geib family had tried to get the Michigan State Police to change the classification of this incident from a drowning to a murder. They won't change it. Imagine a police department that ignores science, the forensics evidence the body gives us, which is very strange because, you know, when something that weird pops up and they have to get involved, they don't want to touch it, so they don't even want to deal with it after the body's found. You know, they leave it up to the forensics. They just go on about their lives. Obviously. Okay, how can this be ignored? Why would it be ignored? These incidents are probably much more widespread than anyone can imagine. According to Gannon and Gilbertson, the amount of drugs found in Todd's body was not normal and pointed toward murder. The area where Todd's body was found could not be seen from any roadway and would be considered remote. The location, coupled with the body's position, the absolute pristine condition of the body, and people being on the lake in the previous weeks points to the body being in a very unusual place and not being there the entire time he was missing. If Todd wasn't in the lake, where was he? Gannon and Gilbertson made a very pointed comment about Todd and his demise. They believed that Todd was murdered, and on page 218 of their book, they say they cannot be touched, they cannot be caught, they are superior. This is the collective mentality of an organization of killers. The victims represent cases that can be linked not by association to the same killers, rather by association to the same ideology and purpose to their murders. On March 18, 2010, the WZZM website ran another article on Todd with a statement from Todd's mom, Kathy. Someone is out there walking around that killed my son. I have no doubt. This is something we are not letting go until we have justice for Todd. We just cannot walk away from this. Take the sentiments of Gannon, Gilbertson, and Todd's mother, and imagine the number of families and friends that have been victimized in this way. This entire scenario boggles the mind. Yeah, this does boggle the mind because this whole case is strange. I mean, he's walking in the direction to his home, but somehow ends up turning around and walking the opposite direction to this lake where he meets his demise. Now, this lake is on I think it said it was on the west side of where the party was. You know, and it was on the other side. I think they said he was either on the west side of the party or on the west side of his place of rest. And all the evidence that states that the body was put there in a very strange way. Who could have done it? I mean, he was bobbing up and down like a bobber, like as if his feet was heavier than his upper body, you know. And the fact that he was just put there in such a weird way, and all the evidence that surrounded his case, that didn't make any sense. These are cases and these are evidence that just it can't be figured out, and that part right there just really makes you go nuts, because you want to find out what happened to that young man, but you can't, because when these people are killed, they are killed in ways that cannot be it cannot be determined how they killed in every single way possible. All of the evidence that surround his case is like it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like he said, he has dozens and dozens of cases where these people are found like this, but this one just tops them all, because you know, it's just weird. All of it is just weird, and I hope that one day they can figure out that these killings are not done by any human at all. These are obviously superior beings. They are able to kill a person, take them where they want them to go. They can get inside their head and tell them to go to a certain spot. Obviously, you know, maybe he saw something, maybe they were able to control his mind and tell him to go to this one place where they're gonna, you know, take his life or take his soul. And that seems to be what happened. You know, they always found dead, and the body was pristine, for one. And they didn't mention him being in his clothes. They just said the body was pristine. So he was obviously, you know, partially naked, with probably just his underwear on. And I think he said that his socks and shoes were missing too, when he first started talking about this. Let's see. Yeah, okay, it was sticking up from the water. His cell phone. Okay, it says right here, Todd's baseball hat, cell phone, and one shoe was missing. So he was obviously in his clothes, but just one shoe, his cell phone, and his hat, his baseball hat. That's the only thing. Those are the only things that were missing. So why would they pick and choose certain items on the body? Obviously, they did that to confuse everyone. He said, why would you take a shoe, the cell phone, and a baseball cap, and leave everything else on the body? You know, this is just like all these different things that they do on every single body when they kill them. They remove certain items that will confuse a person. Why would you take this or this or this and not take everything? Weird. But yeah, that right there is a brain scratcher, believe you me. And hopefully one day, like I said, these people, they will realize that there is something weird going on here. It ain't got nothing to do with no serial killer. This is a weird case because something weird happened to this young man. Something killed him. Something took him away, got control of his mind, and made him go into that direction after he was walking home. You know, so, but then, like I said, there's really no evidence to state what happened to him. And that's the part that gets me the most. That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm making sure that you guys know what's going on. So maybe we can all put our heads together and find out what it is or who it is. And that who is not a human from this earth. I can guarantee you that. I say this in all my videos. This is a case of some supernatural shit, whether it be aliens or beings from another reality, where science fiction is reality on their world. So, hey folks, that's all I can say. There you have it. Another crazy case from the Missing 411 books, a sobering coincidence. That's my time on this story. I have to go. I have more coming, so don't worry. My next case that I am going to read, as soon as I can get to that page, the darn card fell into the book. The next case is going to be about Fred Grossfield. This one is in Boston, Massachusetts. So all I have to say is keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears on, so you can listen out for my notifications, because I will be posting another video. If I don't post it within the next couple of minutes, I will post it later on when I get home, because I am off tomorrow and I'll have all day to do that. okay, or at least all night, because I got some things I got to do. My family wants to go hang out and see that movie with Taraji Henson, you know, where she's playing this woman, like one of the first women to go into NASA and become like a one of the people that helped launch the very first rocket. So, because you know it was my cousin's birthday was Thursday, so she's celebrating. She wants to go see that, so I'm not going to interfere with that. I say let's go see that, and we're going to go to not Golden Corral, but this place called Polio Tropical. But anyway, like I said, gotta go. Aloha, mahalo, and hui ho. Peace out, guys. Be safe, be blessed, and have a great day. I know I will, even though I gotta go to work. But anyway, peace out, guys. Love you.